Part 2. Summer deepened. The grass grew tall and green, and the sun hung longer in the sky. Ethan's progress was slow, achingly slow, but it was progress. He'd cleaned out the interior, removed what was left of the old seats, and even managed to unbolt a few parts under the hood. But the more he uncovered, the more daunting the task ahead became. One afternoon, Grandpa brought a visitor. "This here's Jack Tobin," Grandpa said, waving at the man stepping out of a dusty blue pickup truck. "Used to run the garage over in Milton before it closed up. Knows more about engines than anyone I ever met." Jack looked to be in his 60s, with thick arms, a face weathered like sun-baked leather, and a baseball cap that read Chevy Ford. He gave Ethan a nod as he approached the car. "So this is the mystery machine, huh?" Jack muttered, whistling low. "'49 Ford Custom. She was a looker once." Ethan stood up straight, hands dirty and heart hopeful. "Do you think it's fixable?" Jack didn't answer right away. He circled the car slowly, lifting the hood, tapping on panels, muttering to himself. He ran a hand along the crumpled front bumper, then leaned into the engine bay. "She's bad," Jack finally said, straightening up. "Real bad. You're missing hoses, belts, whole sections of wiring, brake lines are shot, fuel tank's probably a mouse hotel by now. You got no compression, no spark, no coolant, no nothing." Ethan's heart sank, but he forced himself to ask, "But could we fix it?" Jack looked at him, then at Grandpa, then back at Ethan. "You serious about this, kid?" "Yes, sir." "You got money?" "Not much. I'm saving." Jack rubbed his chin. "You got patience?" "Yes." "Willing to learn?" "More than anything." Jack stared at him for another moment, then gave a small grunt. "Well, I ain't got nothing better to do now that my fishing boat sprung a leak. Tell you what, I come by a couple times a week. You listen, you learn, you do the grunt work. I'll teach you. But if you flake out, I'm done. No coddling, no shortcuts. Deal?" Ethan's grin stretched from ear to ear. Deal. Jack became the key to everything. He started with the basics. Tools first, what each one did, how to hold them, how not to strip a bolt or shear a nut. Then came the systems. Cooling, fuel, electrical, ignition. Every lesson came with a lecture and a task. Remove this hose. Clean that part. Identify this wire. Sand off the rust until it shines like new. Ethan soaked it up like a sponge. When Jack wasn't around, Ethan kept at it. He bought a shop manual off eBay with his lawn money, read it every night like scripture. Grandpa cleared a corner of the barn for tools and parts, and soon, Ethan had a workbench made from an old door and 2 sawhorses. He learned to scour junkyards and swap meats. He bartered for used parts, an alternator here, a headlight bezel there. He found a guy an hour away selling a set of original hubcaps and begged his mom to drive him. Piece by piece, bolt by bolt, the car began to change. The day Jack taught him to remove the cylinder head was the first time Ethan felt like a real mechanic. His hands were black with grease, sweat ran down his back, and when the thing finally came free with a metallic clang, Ethan whooped so loud it startled the chickens. "You're getting it," Jack said, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "You got the stubbornness and the guts. Just don't lose the patience." By the end of summer, the car was still far from running, but it was no longer a corpse. It was something else now. A project. A promise. One September evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched long, Ethan and Jack stood beside the car, looking at the gleam of the freshly cleaned frame. "She's coming back," Ethan whispered. Jack nodded. "She is. But the real question is, what are you going to do when she's ready?" Ethan blinked. "Drive her, of course." Jack gave a slow, proud smile. "Then we better teach you to drive too." Autumn swept into Kansas with golden fields and crisp, cold mornings. Leaves turned the color of fire, and the old barn smelled of hay, dust, and ambition. Ethan worked every day after school and through the weekends. With Jack guiding him and Grandpa occasionally helping when his knees allowed, the Ford was beginning to look possible. The rust was mostly stripped, the interior had been gutted and cleaned, new spark plugs were installed, wiring had been half rebuilt with salvage parts and plenty of soldering practice, the gas tank had been flushed and patched, The carburetor, a battered relic, had taken them weeks to rebuild using a kit Jack insisted was older than disco. It was early November when they finally decided to try and start the engine. They had been preparing for this day for weeks, chasing electrical gremlins, tightening bolts, sealing leaks. Ethan stood behind the wheel, his palms sweating against the cracked vinyl. Jack was crouched beside the open hood, a fire extinguisher at the ready, just in case. "You sure?" Jack asked. Ethan nodded. Jack gave him a thumbs up. "All right, turn the key." Ethan took a deep breath, turned the key in the ignition, and nothing. Just a click. His heart sank. Jack didn't panic. "Check your battery ground." Ethan leapt out, tightened a loose bolt, wiped his hands on his jeans, and got back behind the wheel. "Try again." Click. Cut chunk. Vroom! The engine coughed, sputtered, and roared to life. The sound was deafening, loud and rough, like an angry animal shaking off decades of sleep. Smoke puffed from the tailpipe, and oil misted out from somewhere under the manifold. But it ran. It ran. Ethan whooped so loud he scared the birds out of a nearby tree. Jack just chuckled and leaned against the car. "Not bad, kid. Not bad at all." Grandpa came limping from the house when he heard the noise, and when he saw the car idling, his eyes went wide. He let out a low whistle. "By God," he said, "you actually did it." They let the engine run for just a few minutes before shutting it down to check for leaks. There were plenty, especially from the radiator, but that didn't matter. That night, Ethan lay in bed wide awake, smiling in the dark. He'd done it. The car had lived again. But dreams don't come without a price. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived in the mailbox. Ethan's mom read it first and looked troubled. "The county's coming to inspect the property," she said. "They're saying the barn might be unsafe." Grandpa's face darkened. "That old business again? They've been trying to shut it down for years." "Why now?" "Because someone complained," Grandpa muttered. "Probably that councilman who wants to rezone this land for development. He hates seeing us use it." The inspection came on a gray Thursday morning. A man in a hard hat and clipboard walked around the barn, scribbled notes, and faked a polite smile. A week later, the verdict arrived. Condemned. Unsafe for use. Scheduled for demolition within 30 days. Ethan stared at the letter in horror. "But the car's in there. They can't just tear it down," he said. "We've been working all year." Jack came over that night, pacing the gravel driveway with a grim look. "They can do it, unfortunately," he said. "Legal loophole. They don't care about your project. They just see a liability. If we don't move the car and the barn comes down, she goes with it." "Where can we move it?" Ethan asked. "We don't have a trailer." Jack sighed. "I got one. But moving a half-restored car ain't easy. It ain't cheap either." For the first time in months, Ethan felt helpless. The barn had become part of the dream, the place where it had all begun. Losing it felt like tearing pages out of a story that hadn't finished being written. "I don't know if I can do it," he whispered. "Maybe they're right. Maybe it's just junk."